Welcome to Repurpose Journey, the podcast where we explore stories of resilience and transformation after life-changing circumstances. I'm your host, Laura, and today I am thrilled to be joined by my daughter, Kylie. She is a gifted artist, so go check out our website at www.kylie, K-Y-L-I-E, Sharee, S-H-A-R-E-E.com. Kylie today brings a unique perspective, having grown up with a mom, navigating a chronic condition. Her experiences of living in the same home with me through the ups and downs of Ménière's disease gives us insights that will resonate with many. Together we will share our story, reminding you that no matter the challenge, you're not alone. Now I'll warn you that we get a little silly, and we like to laugh a lot. And the sound quality is a little different because we are in a larger room for this. And we have her sweet dog hanging out with us. So occasionally she gets in trouble because she's a puppy. So anyways, let's welcome Kylie.
Hi, babes. And co-starring today's episode is Mavis, the 6-month-old black lab who is losing her mind.
Yeah. She's not allowed on the couch and she's already tried a couple times.
Yeah, are you trying? Are you trying? You're my baby.
All right, Kylie, so I have a question for you.
Shoot.
What brings you joy in everyday life?
Well, my dog, number one, my puppy, because, we're both idiots, and it works. She's fun. I really like clouds. I think that's one thing that, for me, will always fascinate me and bring me a lot of joy. And part of that's just because we have an amazing creator who created these really random fluffy things in the sky. And part of that's, I don't know, it looks like a marshmallow and I want to eat it. I think those are just two quick pops into my brain.
Okay.
What are two things that bring you joy in life,
Two things.
Laura?
I asked you for just one.
Oh, well, now we have to up the ante. What are two
right.
things for you?
Well, going off clouds, I love blue skies. I love bright, brilliant blue skies, and that's like one of the joys of living in Colorado, or was one of the joys of living in Colorado, was we always had bright, brilliant blue skies.
She's like, Olaf.
I melt in...
Winter's a good time to stand and cuddle, but put me in summer and I'll be a puddle.
Oh, happy snowman. Yep.
Okay,
I
sorry.
need sunshine and blue skies. I love it. But something that brings me joy in life. I love being around people and hanging out with people. And if you hear Kylie's dog Mavis, she's like chewing on stuff and running around.
She's like a gremlin in a cave right now.
So, not the perfect audio podcast, if you will, but it's very real. Anyways,
This is a Scandinavian podcast now, man. That's not Scandinavian.
I can't do voices.
I can do voices for you. Don't go ahead. Do not stop now. I am ready. I am ready for this. What is the next question?
What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience means never giving up, even when times are hard and not unchanging, but when things do change, that when things shift like sand or shapes as you get older, when things shift. Resilience means not giving up on your figure.
Oh, Lordy.
No, resilience though does. Yeah, we're good. Resilience is, I would assume, I don't know what the technical definition is, but it is about, not giving up and continuing on. And I think, a misconception I hear a lot with resilience is like, we're gonna forge ahead and we're not gonna give up, but it's like, pretending like nothing's hard and there's no struggle. Like, resilience is like, you're only resilient if you're like doing it with a smile on your face and your hair in the wind, like. But, resilience is also just, like, in the face of whatever you're going through, like, recognizing it and, my dog just chomped on my mother's foot.
Biting my foot.
I got nothing. Like, in the face of what you're going through, like, being able to recognize it and, like, be strong enough to not be okay, if you will, and, take a step to continue to move forward and... Even if that doesn't look like, continuing to run, even if, moving forward continues to look like different things. That was very long-winded and chaotic.
Well, we had to deal with the multiple personalities.
Of me or the dog?
Your voices.
Oh.
How has it shown up in your life, or how have you seen it shown up in your life?
I think for me it's like, if we think about, you know, my generation, which would be like Gen Z, but, you know, that age range and a little bit younger, you know, it's a very huge struggle for my generation with, like, mental health stuff and stuff like that. So for me, resilience in the face of, like, when I do struggle, and also, though, when I have friends around me that struggle, and, like, people I know, but, you know, the resilience to, like, continue to encourage and love, like, people my age and not be like, yeah, we're all, like, just mistakes, if you will, in the sense of, like, the issues that so many people do have. Anyway, that was kind of off topic. You know, and I think also resilience, I have the joy and pain of watching a lot of people I know and love go through, I mean, we're on a chronic illness podcast, right, in a sense, like, who have chronic illnesses or cancer or stuff like that. So I think for me, being able to see people like that who have certain issues and stuff, like, see them continue to carry on, and also resilience in loving them and encouraging them, even in, you know, sometimes you don't understand it.
So what do you wish people understood about supporting someone with, like, life change, but a chronic illness, or...
You know, something I wish that I guess people knew more or, like, chose more understanding in is, I think people don't understand why people, like, can't fix it. Because, you know, there's always an answer. You know, get up and move more, go to the doctor, lose weight, like, and there's so many other things, but it's like, sure, there are things that people can and should be doing to improve even just their mental health through it, and to give them a better chance of finding joy and, you know, being able to live a good life. There are times when it's just like, it is what it is, if you will, like, I hate saying that, but, like, there are certain things that for these people don't change and that they can't do anything about. So it's like, you know, still encouraging them, like...
Sometimes I think it is what it is, like, that's where the mental part, in my case, I think, turns that, okay, it is what it is, so how do I go about living the best life I can with the circumstances I have and seeing the good in my days, even when they're not necessarily good?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is, it's like, we shouldn't stop encouraging them, right? Like, to, you know, live as well as they can, but it's also, like, recognizing and loving them despite, like, still having days where, I mean, for you, towards the, not beginning of your journey or whatever, but there would be, like, a week to a week and a half of time where you really didn't get up much, right? Like, it was so bad that you just kind of had to just be, and I think it's, you know, learning that someone's not choosing that. Like, yes, you know, there are times when things are a little bit different, but, like, as a general rule, like, who are we to tell someone, like, oh, you're faking it, or, like, oh, you should be doing better, or you should be doing more, when it's like, sure, maybe there are times when that is true, but that is not our place, and that is not our call to make, and there's nothing we can do besides loving people despite, you know, their life. Like, nobody asks for chronic illness or a really dramatic life change or anything like that. So I think that is one thing I do wish I saw more, was people just being able to love people, and also just, you know, when someone walks into a public place, and, like, Mom wears sunglasses in public a lot, and I don't think people think that's as weird as she thinks they do. Because, you know, obviously we're a lot more self-conscious of ourselves and what we look like and what we act like.
Other than the one guy that was like, oh, do you think you're cool?
Yeah, well, there are always people. But to that point, like, I think, you know, yes, there are some people who are just a little bit weird in the head and who, you know, might be doing it for a weird reason.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's also, like, maybe it's an improvement aid. Maybe it's a mobility aid. Maybe it's someone just trying to make the most of a really crappy situation, like, and stuff like that. So I think also just not being so quick to judge, especially, you know, I don't think necessarily, you know, I don't necessarily think that, like, chronic issues are maybe becoming more common, but they are becoming more visible. And a lot of times, like, I feel like I hear or see people with chronic illnesses or, I mean, even disabilities a lot more than I used to, and I think part of that is just there is a lot more representation, and people are a lot more willing to be open about stuff like that, in terms of seeing people, like, we do need to have a more just open and generous mindset towards that, like not automatically assuming the worst of a situation, because yes, there are times when you need to be hyper aware of things, but like for the most part it's just somebody trying to live their life like as much as they can, and they're doing what they can. So I think those are bunny trails. But two things that I really think would be cool if I guess people recognized or saw more with people with chronic illnesses or whatever in their own life, but also with just the general public, I guess.
So I was curious if there's any advice you would give to someone who's just started supporting a loved one, or a loved one with chronic illness, family member, friend. Like, do you have any advice?
I think there's two big things that I guess would stand out to me. One would be being willing to ask someone what they need, and just not being afraid to ask questions. Like, yes, there are things people are going to be uncomfortable with sharing, and if they are, then that's okay. But encouraging honesty and encouraging, like, just, like, that you're going to be there for what they need and when they need it, and it's not a shame thing. Like, you don't have to be ashamed to ask for help, or to ask me to turn the lights off, or to make a volume lower, or to get you something for pain, or whatever it is, like, just depending on what your situation is. But I think, being willing to ask, and also not pressuring someone to have all the answers, especially if someone is newer, fresher into their, I guess, chronic health journey, or whatever journey it is you're going through. Like, I don't want this to specifically only apply to chronic illnesses. Like, this could be sickness, this could be whatever, just life changes, mental health issues, whatever it is, but not pressuring someone into having the answers, because, especially when you're first into that, you're not always going to know what you need, and they're not always going to know, like, how you can help, but basically just creating a safe place, I guess, where they can ask for help.
And I think on the receiving end of it, sometimes it's just nice to, say I'm here if you need something, or have that be told to you, or asking, maybe not necessarily how you're doing, but, what would you like to do today? Or how can we do what you would like to do? Or I feel like I have friends that will just check in and say, hey, how are you doing? And like, what are you up to? Or, but it's not like it's like feels like it has to be a certain answer with them. And that's truly wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, making yourself, like, a safe space, if you will. I also, I think just making yourself available to, like, if you have a friend who, like, has a chronic illness, or whatever it is that we're talking about, making yourself available, like, obviously not 24/7, like, that's not how life works, but, if you're gonna hang out, and, like, they're having a really bad day, and they being available to making changes, or rescheduling, and, like, I think it's really easy to hold a grudge against people when they do that a lot, and especially when there isn't a reason, but recognizing that, maybe this person has chronic health issues, maybe you don't know that, like, so making yourself, I guess, available, and just being gracious in that, because, there's a lot that we will get to see, I guess, when people are struggling, but there's also so much that we don't get to see.
So one of the next questions I was going to ask you, but I'm also going to, like, add something, I guess, to it, was, what are some ways your family has worked together to support me? But I was thinking about, just like, hey, let's sell our house. Hey, do you want to go to an RV? How'd you feel about all that? Like, now that you're an adult and it's been a few years, and, like, I know there were pros and cons, and we definitely have some definite family memories from it. But, like, do you have any thoughts on, like, making a life change like that?
I do want to just preface this with, my mother gave me no forewarning or preparation time for this, or any of the questions, so these are completely out of the blue for me, so forgive me if I am incredibly scatterbrained. I am incredibly...
Keeping it real!
Incredibly chaotic anyway, so this is just the cherry on top. There's a lot, I think, to even my side of the story of it that will be both the same as my mom's and different, just because obviously we are different people walking the same journey, but, like, different in that sense, for the past few years. I think one thing that always stands out to me when I do talk about, the changes of you know, being 16, quitting my dream job, moving out of my home state, leaving all my friends, my youth group, like, you know, all the things, like, as one does. I made a promise to both me and Mom that I would choose joy in it, and that I would not complain or be angry about it or anything like that. I knew how easy it would be to be bitter about those situations, because that's a lot of change, and it's also just like, I mean, put yourself in my shoes. Like, you're 16, literally doing what you absolutely love. You have an incredible group of friends. You know, it's like, yeah, that's your life and that's your safe place. And if you've ever moved before, like, especially, you know, the first time or two, like, it's kind of overly dramatic. You know, you just hype it up so much in your brain that, like, so much is going to change. So I think that's always a part of it. But anyway, train of thought. I knew that it would be really easy to be bitter about the circumstances, and, like, to be completely honest, it was a huge struggle, in a lot of ways, you know, having basically your whole life changed in a very short amount of time. Like, yes, that can be a beautiful thing, but it's also really, really hard, and mentally that was a struggle for a long time, and having told myself that I would choose joy and that I wouldn't be angry about the situation was a constant reminder, but that also made me angry at myself, because I was like, I made a stupid promise. Like, why did I do that? I don't like it. But, you know, like, I think in retrospect, I don't regret making those changes, and I am glad we did, because obviously, you know, you get to continue to, I guess, find new ways to live your life, if you will, and to explore different options and stuff like that. So I don't regret any of that. And I also think for me, you know, when you take the time to, I guess, look back and, like, ask, like, where was the Lord in this? Like, what is the Lord doing? What story and testimony is he giving me? Like, I think that is a really beautiful thing. And because of that, I wouldn't change it. You know, this has given me some really cool perspectives that otherwise I wouldn't have, because, you know, home blindness is a thing. And it's given me a lot of different ideas and a lot of growth that otherwise, you know, maybe it would have happened, but it would have happened differently, obviously. But, you know, a lot of things that, you know, when I talk to my friends about, like, they just don't understand, because they have been in one place their whole life, or, like, have lived a quote-unquote normal life. Like, so I think there are some incredible blessings, and obviously, yeah, it was some hard years, and that's okay, though. Like, so yeah, I guess I would say, if you are a support person for a family member who's having to make drastic or even small changes,
especially a younger, like,
well, younger or older, like, we all, yeah, it's gonna be different for everybody, but, like, even if you are older, like, I mean, obviously, yeah, specifically younger because I'm younger, but, like, you know, like, yeah, it's gonna suck. Like, there's no sugarcoating that, and there are times when you're gonna hate it, and maybe you will be bitter against the person who's made you make these changes, but keep pressing forward, and don't use this as an excuse to, one, like, hate your person, if you will, who's the quote-unquote cause of these changes, if you will, but also, like, I hate to say, like, choose joy in it, but, like, choose joy in it, because, you know, even if it's not until you're on the other side, like, there's gonna be so many cool things that you otherwise wouldn't have had, and even if that is, the cool thing is the worst experience of your life, that gives you such an incredible story to tell. And it also, you know, it gives you a ground for understanding people that otherwise would have no chance of being understood. So, yeah, I think, obviously, that changed me in both negative and positive ways, but I, again, wouldn't change it. I would not choose to change it, so.
There was at least enough good memories in there. I agree. Like, even the other side, seeing what you gave up and that you had to walk through, definitely wasn't, like, easy for anyone, like your dad or I
think it's also not making it about yourself. Like, yes, in this case it was about my mom. Like, that's why we were moving. But, like, for me, you know, not making it like, oh, woe is me. Like, what are you focusing on? What, I mean, I said this the other night, obviously in a different context, but what's your dwelling place? Like, that's, like, for whether or not you're a believer. Like, what are you dwelling on? Where are you setting your heart and your sights and your mind and your dreams? Like, is it just to get out of the situation? Is it just to move out on your own or be free? Like, what are you looking for? What's your dwelling place, I guess?
Yeah. And
for
that
both
like,
sides.
you know, you were saying choose joy, see the good, like, because even in the hardest, in my opinion, even in the hardest, there's still something good about it. You have breath in your lungs. Maybe you have a drink of water. I don't know. But there's something. The sun is shining. The skies are blue. There's green grass. I don't, like, pick something. There's a pumpkin because it's Thanksgiving, or there's a tree because it's Christmas. There's the possibility for something to be good, even in the hardest parts.
For sure.
So what has surprised you the most about yourself or your family during this journey? Has there been anything that you can think of that, like, I don't know, surprised you as to, like, for me, even though you were young, 16, when we decided to move, the willingness of my family to do this was huge. And to see that was huge. And to see just the willingness to step outside of the box, not be normal, if you will, and do something completely random. Let's go check out 21 states or whatever it was in a short time. How can extended family members or friends best support a family like yours?
I think it's kind of the same premise as, like, what I was saying earlier. Like, I think it's choosing understanding over reason. It's, again, the concept of always pushing them to be, like, better, or, like, what's wrong with you, or, like, figure it out, like, rather than, like, sitting back and, like, okay. And I think it's also, this is the other point I was going to make earlier that I fully forgot about when talking about, like, how close friends or family can support you, is, like, choosing to be observant sometimes, too, over questions. Like, I hate to say make, like, a character profile for your person, but taking the time to be like, you know, this obviously bothers them. So, like me, if I watch my mom, I can see that she tends to turn lights off. She tends to get really red under certain harsh lighting circumstances and stuff like that. So keeping a little filing cabinet, if you will, of like, oh, you know, this is a trigger. Like, and, like, obviously don't psychoanalyze someone, like,
Right.
But, you know, choosing to be
pick
observant.
up on the
because
things.
also, like, if I have made a note of some of those things and, like, you know, am able next time I see my mom to have the lights set up for her so that she can better enjoy her time with me, like, stuff like that, like, you know, even if I'm not being obvious, like, oh, look, are the lights okay? Did I turn the lights off for you? Or, like, you know, that means something to someone. And also, you know, encouraging them to be able to make the changes, like, if there is a trigger for you, like, being willing to be like, hey, can I, you know, turn that off, or can we change that, like, is great. So I think that also applies to extended family. Like, obviously they don't see you as much, but the things they do know are that you've told them, like, try really hard to be aware of that. And obviously we're gonna make mistakes. Like, obviously, the example I just used was lights for my mom, and, like, you know, that's something that I still forget all the time, especially now that I live on my own. Like, it's just not something I always think about, because I'll turn lights on and such. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna forget, right? And we're not gonna be perfect. They're not perfect. Like, that is just life. But trying to be aware of those things and create an environment you can all enjoy it and not have it be a burden and a really harsh thing for you. I think also, yeah, not trying to overanalyze them, because I think a lot of extended family will be like, what's wrong with you? Is this one of your symptoms? Like, is this gonna help? Can you try this? Have you tried this? Do you want to? Can I help you? Like,
What
can
are
I
your
help you
symptoms?
try it? Like, yeah.
What bothers you?
Asking you every time, like, oh, you're not feeling well, why? So I think, yeah, just being able to not always push buttons, like, and overanalyze and stuff like that is good. Like, obviously, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a happy balance, right? But
So, in a sense, when we decided to sell our house and downsize and
we did that?
do the whole RV thing,
I don't remember.
what did you learn about yourself through this process of repurposing? Because we kind of made you repurpose your journey, even though we weren't necessarily trying to.
Yeah, I'm probably going to lose my thought, but I do think, you know, this topic of repurposing is important for all sides of the spectrum, if you will. Like, whether you are actively struggling with a chronic illness, whether you know someone who is, whether you're just living your life, like, you know, we're always going to have things that happen, whether that is a really traumatic experience on the street, whether that is a health change, whether that is, heck, pregnancy, like a relationship, a friendship, a new job, like being willing to not just say, oh, it's not what it was, therefore it's not good enough, like, you know, is super important. And one thing that I've been learning a lot lately is, like, your story and your life is usable where it's at. Like, just because it's not perfect or you're not where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago, like, there's still, you know, so much to accomplish and do, and sometimes we have to look really hard to find it, and sometimes we have to do things that we would never think, and, like, look in the unexpected places, because, yeah, repurposing is a beautiful thing, and it sucks. It's a hard thing, but it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one thing I've learned, kind of like I just said, is that, like, we're usable wherever we're at. That sounds awful. I specifically apply that into, like, what the Lord is teaching me. Like, that's where I come from with that, like, that, you know, just because we're not perfect, if you will, or at a point where we were a few years ago, or at the highlight of our relationship with the Lord, specifically, like, you know, we're still, like, we still have a purpose, and he can still use us, and he can still work through us, even though we're not, you know, at the ideal place, like, whatever. I think another thing would just kind of be, like, just openness to see things a little bit differently, because, like, when you've grown up in the same place, kind of had the whole same friends your whole life, or, like, even for the past 10 years, like, say, kind of been in a comfortable place, maybe, like, you just get so used to things, and, like, you kind of want things to be a certain way, when it's, like, there is no one certain way things should, for a lot of things, or there is no right, like, one specific answer, and I think this applies to people a lot, like, what people should be, or what your expectations of them, should be. I guess that kind of sort of made sense. But, you know, just, like, obviously there are things that are right, and there are things that are wrong, but being open to discussions, and to looking at things a little bit differently, even if you ultimately decide, like, that lens is not right, like, but still being open to those kind of conversations, and just seeing the world a little bit differently than, you know, your friendly neighborhood.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Repurpose Journey, as I got to interview my amazing daughter, Kylie. We'd love for you to join us again, so don't forget to hit that subscribe or like button, and we'd love to hear from you. You can always go to www.repurposejourney.com for any resources and to connect. And once again, a shameless plug, Kylie's website for her art is www.kyliesharee.com, KYLIESHAREE.com. Have a great day.